What if the thing you keep calling laziness is not actually laziness? What if you're not avoiding the task? What if you're avoiding the feeling that comes with the task? Because think about it. Most of the time, you already know what you need to do. You know you need to start the assignment. You know you need to apply for the job. You know you need to clean the room. You know you need to edit the video. You know you need to send the message. You know you need to fix the thing you've been ignoring. And yet somehow, you don't do it. You open your phone. You watch one more video. You tell yourself you'll start in 10 minutes. Then 10 minutes becomes 1 hour. 1 hour becomes the whole afternoon. And by the end of the day, you feel even worse. Not because the task disappeared, but because now you have the task and the guilt. And then your brain says, "See, you're lazy." But maybe that's not the full story. Maybe procrastination is not always a time management problem. Maybe it's an emotional problem. Maybe the task is not the thing you're scared of. Maybe you're scared of what the task will make you feel. If you're writing something, maybe you're not avoiding writing. Maybe you're avoiding the feeling of realizing your ideas are not as good as you hoped. If you're applying for a job, maybe you're not avoiding the application. Maybe you're avoiding the feeling of being rejected. If you're cleaning your room, maybe you're not avoiding the mess. Maybe you're avoiding the feeling that your life has gotten out of control. If you're starting a YouTube channel, maybe you're not avoiding filming. Maybe you're avoiding the possibility that nobody will care. And that is why telling yourself, "Just be disciplined," usually doesn't work. Because the problem is not that you don't understand the task. The problem is that starting the task puts you face to face with an uncomfortable feeling. And your brain is very good at protecting you from discomfort, even when that protection ruins your life slowly. This is the painful part about procrastination. In the short term, it works. When you avoid the task, you feel relief. You don't have to face the blank page. You don't have to face rejection. You don't have to face judgment. You don't have to face the possibility that you might try and still fail. So your brain learns, avoiding this makes me feel better. But only for a little while. Because later, the task is still there. And now it's heavier. Now it comes with shame. Now it comes with pressure. Now it comes with the feeling that you're falling behind. So you avoid it again, because now it feels even worse. That is the loop. Task creates discomfort. Avoidance creates relief. Relief teaches your brain to avoid again. Then guilt makes the task feel even bigger. And suddenly, you're not just doing one task. You're fighting a whole emotional mountain. There's a psychological idea called emotion regulation. It basically means the ways we try to manage our feelings. And procrastination can become a form of emotion regulation. Not a good one, but a very human one. You're not procrastinating because doing nothing feels amazing. You're procrastinating because not starting feels safer than starting, at least for a moment. And if this already feels a little too familiar, take a second to like this video and subscribe. Because this channel is about understanding the patterns we usually shame ourselves for. Because most people don't need more self-hate. They need to finally understand what is actually happening inside them. Now, one reason procrastination feels so powerful is because the pain of starting is immediate, but the reward is far away. Think about going to the gym. The discomfort is now. Changing clothes is now. Leaving the house is now. Feeling awkward is now. Getting tired is now. But the reward? That comes later. Weeks later. Months later. Maybe even years later. Your brain is not always good at caring about future rewards when present discomfort is right in front of you. That's why you can genuinely want a better life and still avoid the actions that would create it. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means the future version of you is asking for something that the current version of you has to emotionally pay for. And the current version of you is tired. So when people say, if you really wanted it, you would do it. That sounds strong, but it's not always true. People avoid things they deeply care about all the time. Actually, sometimes we procrastinate more on things that matter more. Because if it doesn't matter, failure doesn't hurt that much. But if it matters? If this project means something to you, if this dream means something to you, if this opportunity could change something, then starting becomes emotionally dangerous. Because now failure feels personal. It doesn't feel like, this task didn't work. It feels like, maybe I'm not who I hoped I was. That's why procrastination is often connected to self-worth. You're not just afraid of doing the thing badly. You're afraid of what doing it badly might say about you. So instead of trying and risking that pain, you stay in the fantasy of potential. And potential feels safe. Potential lets you say, I could do it if I really tried. But action gives you evidence. And evidence is scary. Because once you try, you have to see where you actually are. That's why some people would rather keep delaying than begin imperfectly. Not because they don't care, but because starting would break the illusion that they can still be perfect in their imagination. And honestly, that's a very human fear. Nobody wants to meet the gap between who they are and who they wish they were. Nobody wants to sit with that uncomfortable middle space. But that middle space is where growth happens. Not in the fantasy, in the messy beginning. The first draft, the awkward attempt, the bad version, the uncomfortable conversation, the application that might get ignored, the video that might get 10 views, the workout where you feel weak, the room that looks worse before it looks better. That's where your life actually starts changing. Not when you feel ready, but when you stop needing the beginning to feel good. Because most beginnings don't feel good. They feel exposed. They feel clumsy. They feel uncertain. And if you expect the beginning to feel inspiring, you will keep waiting. This is where a lot of self-improvement advice gets it wrong. It makes you think successful people always feel motivated. They wake up clear. They know exactly what to do. They have perfect routines. They don't struggle with resistance. But that's not real life. A lot of progress is just someone feeling uncomfortable and still doing a very small part of the thing. Not the whole thing. Not the perfect thing. Just enough to stay connected to the direction they care about. So what do you do if you are stuck in procrastination? Not in a fake motivational way, in a real way. First, stop asking, why am I so lazy? That question attacks you. And when you feel attacked, you usually avoid even more. Ask instead, what feeling am I trying not to feel? That question is different. It doesn't shame you. It gives you information. Maybe the feeling is fear. Maybe it's boredom. Maybe it's confusion. Maybe it's shame. Maybe it's pressure. Maybe it's the fear of being judged. Maybe it's the fear of trying and still not being enough. Once you name the feeling, the task becomes less mysterious. You realize, oh, I'm not avoiding the email. I'm avoiding feeling stupid. Or, I'm not avoiding the video. I'm avoiding being seen. Or, I'm not avoiding studying. I'm avoiding the fear that I'm already behind. And once you know what feeling you're avoiding, you can stop treating yourself like a bad person and start treating yourself like a person who is scared. Second, make the first step emotionally smaller. A lot of people fail because their starting point is too dramatic. They say, I'm going to change my whole life today. That sounds exciting, but it also feels threatening, so your brain resists it. Instead, make the beginning almost too small to respect. Don't say, I need to write the whole script. Say, I'm going to write the first messy sentence. Don't say, I need to clean my entire room. Say, I'm going to clear this one small area. Don't say, I need to fix my whole career. Say, I'm going to open the job website. The point is not to impress yourself. The point is to lower the emotional wall around starting. Because once you begin, the task usually becomes less scary than it was in your head. Third, separate your worth from the result. This one is hard, but important. If every task feels like a test of your identity, of course you'll avoid it. If one bad video means you're not talented, if one rejection means you're not good enough, if one failed attempt means you're embarrassing, then every beginning will feel dangerous. So you have to remind yourself, this is not a final judgment of who I am. This is just an attempt. A draft is not your identity. A mistake is not your identity. A slow start is not your identity. A rejected application is not your identity. It is information. Painful information sometimes, yes, but still information. And information can help you adjust. Shame just makes you hide. Fourth, build trust with yourself through small promises. Not huge promises, small ones. Because when you keep making giant promises and breaking them, you start to lose trust in yourself. You say, "Tomorrow I'll work for 5 hours." Then you don't. So now the task feels bad, and your own word feels unreliable. Instead, make promises you can actually keep.
I'll do 5 minutes. I'll open the document. I'll send one message. I'll clean one corner. I'll record one rough take. Small promises may look unimpressive, but they rebuild something very important: self-trust. And self-trust is what makes bigger action possible later. Because discipline is not always built through force. Sometimes it is built through proving to yourself, over and over again, "I can start even when I don't feel ready." And that is the real shift. You don't need to become a person who never feels fear. You need to become a person who can feel fear without letting it make every decision. You don't need to destroy procrastination overnight. You need to understand what it is trying to protect you from. Because procrastination is not always your enemy. Sometimes it is a signal that something feels too big, a signal that you are scared of judgment, a signal that you don't know where to start, a signal that the task is tied to your self-worth, a signal that you need support, clarity, or a smaller first step. And when you see it that way, everything changes. You stop saying, "I'm lazy." You start saying, "Something about this feels emotionally heavy." And that gives you a way in. Not through shame, through understanding. So if you've been procrastinating, I don't want you to use this video as another reason to attack yourself. I want you to take a breath. Because maybe you are not broken. Maybe you are not lazy. Maybe you have been standing in front of a door that feels heavier than it looks. And instead of screaming at yourself to open it, maybe the first step is to understand why your hand keeps pulling away. That does not mean you stay stuck forever. It means you stop fighting yourself blindly. You start working with the part of you that is scared. And slowly, you teach yourself that starting does not have to be perfect. Starting does not have to feel good. Starting does not have to prove your worth. Starting can simply be small. One sentence, one click, one message, one corner, one imperfect attempt. And maybe that is how you change. Not by becoming fearless, but by becoming gentler with the fear. Not by forcing yourself to become a completely different person overnight, but by making the next step safe enough to take. So the next time you catch yourself procrastinating, don't immediately say, "I'm lazy." Ask yourself, what feeling am I avoiding right now? And then make the first step smaller. So small that your fear doesn't need to fight it. Because your future does not need you to hate yourself into action. It needs you to come back to yourself. Quietly. Honestly. One small start at a time.